Our discussion on market segmentation is going to cover three sets of videos. And before we get, I guess, into the meat and potatoes of segmentation, I kind of want to set out and help you understand some of the different nuances about market segmentation, specifically when it comes to some of the terminology that we use.
For example, a lot of the times there's some confusion as to terminology. When we think about market segment, we're looking at a group of buyers who share a similar set of needs within an overall market. These groups are identified by marketers. They're not created by marketers. Segmentation, or market segmentation on the other hand, is dividing a broad group into subsets of buyers that have or are perceived to have common needs, interests, and priorities. And a target market is a market segment that a company decides to pursue. So let's just keep those things in mind as we move forward. As I was just noted, market segmentation consists of dividing a broad market into subsets of buyers that have or are perceived to have common needs, interests, and priorities. If we look at the athletic shoe market, we can break things down. We can break the broader market into the need that people have for certain types of shoes. We have tennis shoes, basketball shoes, golf, hiking, running, etc. All of those people in those markets are buying shoes for a specific reason. That's pretty simple. But even inside that, we can break it down even further into looking at what specifics they are looking for in each one of those classifications. For example, if we look at tennis shoes, what is the difference between one set of shoes and another? It could be aesthetics, it could be fit, it could be comfort, it could be all of these different factors that people are looking for. So a simple way of looking at it is just taking the entire market, breaking it down into different groups that have certain needs. Now, if we look at, for example, why do we segment? I mean, if you look at it on the surface, a manufacturer such as Procter & Gamble would strongly prefer that every single customer they have buy Tide. But they don't. They buy a multitude of different brands because they have different needs. Procter & Gamble prefers that they would prefer if they bought Tide, primarily because every other brand that they have is going to have a different advertising budget, is going to take up different production capabilities, it's going to have different employees working on each individual brand, but they would prefer if you just bought Tide. However, customers are not one size fits all. For example, in the laundry detergent market, we have customers that are looking for fresh smelling clothes. We have those that are looking for all-purpose, tough on stains, and those customers that are, looking for a detergent that prevents fading or takes care of the colors of their clothes. So therefore, Tide, or Procter & Gamble in this case, must come up with different products that are going to meet those needs. Now, of course, in each one of these little groups, you're going to have people that are going to prefer liquid, a powder, the pods, whatever it's going to be, but everybody's going to have different needs inside each one of these groups. So we think about segmentation. For a segment to occur, 5 different criteria must be met. First, it must be homogeneous. By that, everybody in that group must have similar needs. It also must be heterogeneous. One group must be distinct from another group. They should also be substantial. So, and again, when we think about substantial, it's a very different thing rather than just pure numbers. If you look at the market for, say, a Rolls-Royce or a Lamborghini, it's very small, but it's substantial in the form of how much they're willing to pay and how much profit the company can make on each sale. I should also be able to identify each member of the group. This is not always easy because finding out who they are, what they are, where they are is not always as simple as it might sound. And finally, for a segmentation to occur, the group must be responsive. And responsive in a term of responsive to my message, responsive to my product, responsive to the efforts that I take from a marketing perspective. The entire process of segmentation requires 6 individual steps. In this first lecture, we're only going to talk about needs identification. But to give you the entire picture, after we've identified the certain needs, why people are buying a product, we're going to identify them through their demographics, psychographics. Look at how attractive that segment is, look at how profitable that segment is, then determining the positioning that we want to take, and finally coming up with a strategy in terms of the marketing mix. We'll talk about the last 5 of these in the next lecture. In terms of need identification, marketers must consider multiple perspectives. For example, in the car buying market, buyers have elected to acquire an automobile rather than using other forms of transportation, such as relying on taxis, public transportation, motorcycles, bicycles, walking, etc. However, even within this group of buyers who are seeking an automobile, consumers have different needs they are trying to solve. Some are looking for low-cost basic transportation, while others are seeking a luxurious driving experience, and even others are looking for a performance-oriented solution. Of course, there are many other groups out there. You could have truck buyers, you could have minivan buyers, etc., but these just give you an idea of the big picture, narrowing down to the smaller groups identification. By segmenting markets, managers hope to have a greater understanding of opportunities that may exist in the market, especially in those markets that are consistently shifting. Also, by seeing the market more clearly, marketers can adapt with new product offerings or by repositioning existing products. However, on the other side of that coin, understanding the various market segments will also allow an organization to cover shifts in the consumer needs that may pose a serious threat. For example, Kellogg is a $14 billion company, and of course breakfast cereal is a major portion of their business. But over the last 20 years, cereal sales have been declining about an average of 1% per year. This is due primarily to shifts in consumers' breakfast habits. So Kellogg needed to understand the entire breakfast market. So for Kellogg, seeing data such as this, it gives you a little bit of concern. As we said, cereal sales have been falling, but yogurt and egg sales have been increasing each of the last few years. There are many different reasons for this decline. Changing diets, busier schedules are 2 that probably come to mind. But one of the biggest problems that Kellogg's is facing is, we'll look at this next slide, who's skipping breakfast. And if we think about breakfast and we think about who's not eating breakfast, we see that it's that younger age group in the 12 to 30-year-old range that are skipping breakfast. This should be a major concern for Kellogg's. If younger people are more likely to skip breakfast than an older person, does this mean that's going to be a trend in which that younger people who aren't eating breakfast now will continue to skip the morning meal? Or is it an indication of the differences between various age groups based on their current circumstances, such as busy work schedules, school schedules, etc.? And will these skippers come back to eating breakfast once they get older? To make things worse, we can look at the cereal manufacturers by reading news that McDonald's has turned around their declining sales by adding breakfast as an all-day option. So however you interpret the data, finding out why people are skipping breakfast, what their needs are, will likely turn up greater insights than just knowing their age, type of music they listen to, favorite sports, etc. One of the things that might be helpful in this discussion is if you look ahead to the article Milkshake Marketing, which will be in I think it's reading 8.1. This is an article by Clay Christensen, who looked at hiring a product to do a job for us perspective. It's a really good article that kind of ties into this if you want to look at it. One thing of note from the previous graph is that even those people who are eating breakfast, they aren't necessarily eating Kellogg's products. There are other options that they're choosing. So Kellogg's went out and tried to discover the different type of segments there were, and they found in one group, on-the-go breakfast eaters, 5 different segments. The discerning dashers, gulp and runners, ninja munchers, sedentary socializers, and sit and savorers. So how do you respond if you're Kellogg's? One, you come up with new product options. For example, you have Kellogg's to go. If you see here, fits in the cup holder of your car. It's nice and easy to reach in and grab. Or you have Kellogg's to go. It's just a drink. It's a shake. Or flatbread sandwich, or snack bars. All of these different options Kellogg's has come up with, trying to stem the tide of falling sales. So we tie all this back to our first example of automobiles. Let's look at the automobile insurance segment. One of the things that insurance agencies and companies have found is that people that have multiple policies with one company, their retention rate is much higher. So these companies are going out trying to put together packages for your home and your auto insurance in all efforts to keep higher retention rates. If we look at the unbundled, or those that just buy things individually, you have about an 83% retention rate. Well, that 12% change in retention rate can be the difference between hundreds of millions of dollars for some organizations. How do we do it? Let's find out.
Up next for Career Day, quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
That State Farm agent said she helps people. What do you do?
I play football.
That's not a job.
Well,
Did you save my dad hundreds with the discount double check?
no, but I was MVP last year.
Mr. Hubble says trophies are for people with self-esteem issues.
Who's Mr. Hubble?
That's Rod Hubble.
No, it is not.
For savings, we're best in class.
Hey, Roger! Discount double check!
Get to a better state. State Farm.